Morning everyone, it's good to be back with you. Thank you for that, whoever said morning, that's very nice. If you can remember, last time I was here with you, we were looking at the subject of wisdom, and I said that every time I'd be coming back that we're going to pursue this for the rest of the year. Now it's actually been a fair while since I've been here, but I will be coming, I think it's another 3 times in the next few months. So if you don't have a Bible reading program, can I recommend for you Proverbs? Because at least when I come, then you'll be on top of things, which would be great, okay? So if you maybe ditched it, you had a plan at the start of the year, you've quit, here's an opportunity to take it up, okay? Take up the book of Proverbs because it will benefit you. Now, if you can remember last time, we had a definition for wisdom, and it was this. It's the skill of living well for God. The skill of living well for God. The wise person is someone who sees life as it really is. Okay? They're not optimistic. That is, they don't say, oh, even though it looks bad, who cares? I just think it's going to be great. Okay? They're not somebody who's negative, pessimistic. Even though things are pretty good, they go, oh, but it's going to go horrible. They look at life and they say, this is actually what life is like. They're real about it. And what they have then is the ability to choose the best means to achieve the best ends possible. Because they see life as it is and they say, if this is the ultimate goal, then this is the best means for me to choose to get to that goal. They make the most of the opportunities God has given them. Okay, they're not the type of person, I said last time, that is always complaining and saying, oh, if only I had this skill and this gift and X, Y and Z, then I could do this for God and it'd be great. And they just spend all their time fantasizing in their head about what they could do if they had all these things. Okay, that's to live in fantasy land. The wise person says, what has God given me? What do I have in my hand? What's the hand I've been dealt? How do I best play this hand for the glory of God? He's not going to hold you to account for somebody else's gifts. So that's actually really relieving. You don't have to look around at anybody else and worry about what they're doing and not doing, because he's not going to hold you account for what you don't have. He holds you to account for what he has given you. However little or much you think it is, he just holds you to account for that. Now, you might also remember last time, for those of you who are here, I said that culturally speaking, we don't do wisdom. We don't think about things in terms of wisdom. It's not even a category of thinking we have. So I mentioned the fact that if you ask a parent what they desire for their child, no parent will say, I want my child to be wise. Now, if you said to them, do you want a wise child? They say yes. But we don't think in those terms. We think in terms of, I want my child to, do well at school, get a good job, be able to afford a house, hopefully one day. But the category of wisdom is just not there at all. And because of that, we suffer from, when we ever come up to big decisions in life, we experience one of 3 things. Number 1, we experience paralysis. We don't know what to do. Why? Because we're not wise. And especially if you're the nervous, sort of fearful type, if you come up to a big decision that's going to have a big effect on your life and you don't know what to do, you just freeze. And a lot of the time it's because we don't have the wisdom to know what to do. And if we don't have wisdom, the other thing we try to do is make up rules. We become legalistic. Okay? Well, what I'll do is, I don't know what to do, so I'll make up these arbitrary rules in my head, and if this situation fits all these arbitrary rules I made up, then I should do it. And I mentioned to you last time, sometimes we do that with, okay, I don't know who to marry, but because that's really big, what I'll do is make up rules that aren't in the Bible, and they've got to be like this, and they've got to be this high, and they're this tall, and they've got to earn this much, and you have all these rules, and you go, oh, nobody in here meets that standard. I'm going to be single then. You just made that up. That's really dumb. Okay? But we all do it. Why? Because we get scared because it's a big decision. We don't know what to do. We're not wise, and so we make up rules. Rules that God hasn't told us, We make them up ourselves. The other thing is we pursue miraculous signs. So don't know which university course to do, don't know which job to take, don't know if you should take the promotion or not, should you retire, should you keep working. God, give me a sign. And so you spend up your whole life looking for all these miraculous signs because you lack wisdom. So wisdom is crucial. It's life-giving. It helps us deal with so much in life. Really important. Now, in continuing our look at the book of Proverbs and the subject of wisdom, we're going to do something a little bit different this morning. We're going to look at it from a different angle. We're actually going to spend most of our time studying the fool. So the fool, he's very well known in the book of Proverbs. You read it, it talks about him all the time, And the reason for that is, if you want to understand what a wise person looks like, understand what a fool looks like, and then you'll get it. You study it by way of contrast. It helps to highlight what wisdom looks like when you understand what a fool looks like. See this in the physical realm all the time, You go and you want to buy a diamond. What colour cloth does a jeweller put the diamond on? Black. Why does he put it on a black piece of cloth? So it highlights the brilliance of the diamond. You do not put it on a yellow fluorescent piece of cloth because then you cannot see how it sparkles, right? So if you want to see how good the wise life is and looks like, we're going to look at how foolish the fool's life is. To help us see how good wisdom is. So we're studying the fool to help us understand how good wisdom is. Now there's three basic groups when it comes to the fool. There's three types of fools. And they're all in this verse, in chapter 1, verse 22. It says this: How long will you simple love your simple ways? How long will mockers delight in mockery and fools hate knowledge? Now I know the word fool there, it's only used once, but there's three types of fools there. Firstly, there's this, what I'm calling the simple fool. How long will you who are simple love your simple ways? That's the first fool we're going to look at, the simple fool. Then the verse goes on to mention the mocker, the scoffer he's sometimes called. How long will mockers delight in mockery? We're going to look at that third actually. And the third type mentioned here, we're going to look at it second. Hopefully that's clear. Is what I'm calling the obstinate fool. The obstinate fool. So firstly the simple fool, then the obstinate fool, and then followed by the scoffer, the mocker, the scoffer. So firstly, simple fool. What does the simple fool look like? Well, chapter 7 of Proverbs, we're given one of the clearest examples of what this person looks like. Now, I'm going to read this to you. I want you to just listen and see if you can pick up, why is this guy a simple fool? Why would you put the word simple with him? Now, the context is the father is speaking to his son, and he wants him to grow in wisdom, and so he's going to point out to him, this is what a simple fool looks like, son. And this is what he says. At the window of my house, I looked down through the lattice. I saw among the simple, I noticed among the young men, a youth who had no sense. He was going down the street near her corner, walking along in the direction of her house, at twilight, as the day was fading, as the dark of night set in. Then out came a woman to meet him, dressed like a prostitute and with crafty intent. She is unruly, defiant, never her feet stay at home, now in the street, now in the squares, at every corner she lurks. She took hold of him and kissed him with a brazen face, and she said, Today I fulfilled my vows. I have food from my fellowship offering at home. So I came out to meet you. I looked for you, and I have found you. I have covered my bed with coloured linens from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh and aloes. Come, let's drink deeply of love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love. My husband is not at home. He's gone away on a long journey. He took his purse filled with money. He will not be home till full moon. And with persuasive words she led him astray. She seduced him with her small talk as well. All at once he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, like little knowing it will cost him his life. Now, you'd probably actually have to read that a few times to pick up everything there, but what we have here is someone who today we might call naive. Okay? He's a young man, young adult man. He's gullible. He's easily influenced. And therefore he's led astray. His inexperience basically means he drifts into temptation. Now, we'll see later that the simple, they do have an inclination towards evil, but they aren't hardened in it. It's more like you're clueless. Why would you go down that path? You're going to run into trouble down there. He's not like the obstinate fool, stubborn in their folly. He's not like the scoffer who thinks their foolishness is actually wisdom. He just drifts into it. And so you get proverbs like this. Proverbs 14. The simple believe anything, but the prudent give thought to their steps. Proverbs 22. The prudent see danger and take refuge. That is, they see the danger up ahead, and because they see it, they say, I'm not going that way, I'm going to go this way. But the simple keep going and pay the penalty. That's exactly what this young man did, didn't he? Twilight, as night is setting in, he walks down towards her house, to where she is, what we would call today the red light district. And you say, son, young man, why would you head down there at night? You're asking for trouble. But that's what the simple fool does. Now, because this type of foolishness is associated with being naive, having a lack of experience and being easily influenced, it's a foolishness that tends to be more prominent among the young. So, for example, the father said, I saw among the simple, I noticed among the young men, a youth who had no sense. So he's associating the simple and young men, And young in Proverbs is anything from basically teenager to young adult up to, they think, around 40. So I know some of you may look at 30-year-olds like me and go, old, right? But I assure you, if it's Pastor Chu or whatever, he looks at me and goes, young. According to the culture back then, basically if you were under 40, you were considered young. So I would be in danger of being a young, simple fool. And that's how it's associated in Proverbs. If you're young, this is the one you're more likely to fall into. Now, before any of you who consider yourself young gets offended by that, the fact that, this is something young people fall into, consider this. 3 things you need to keep in mind. Proverbs was written for the purpose of making the simple wise. God knows that we're foolish. And so he gives us a book to say, here is how you can learn so you're not like that. Proverbs chapter 1. It says this, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, for, and then we're told who it's for, and in verse 4 it says, for giving prudence to those who are simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. So again, you get the simple and the young there tied together, but God is saying, no, I don't want you like that. I want you to be wise. Second thing we need to keep in mind is, of the 3 different stages we're going to look at of foolishness, this is the easiest one to change. It's not easy per se, but it is the easiest to change. Once you get obstinate, which tends to be associated with getting older, it gets harder. And the third thing you need to keep in mind is that Proverbs tells us all of us begin life as simple fools. We're all gullible, we're all immature, we're all naive. If you will not accept that, you can't even start to become wise. Proverbs 22 puts it like this. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child. It's there, you can't escape it. None of us do escape it. You can grow up from it, perhaps, but all of us are born with it. In Lady Gaga's word, we were all born that way. We really were. We're born foolish. The opportunity is, will we grow out of it? It's not automatic. Getting old is automatic. Becoming wise isn't. I was reading an interesting article a while ago now, I guess. It was in The Atlantic. You can find it online if you want to look for it. It was entitled How We Become What We Are. And it mentioned that throughout most of human history, people have been regarded less as individuals and more as a variation of a few basic types of humans, okay? So, for example, at one stage, everybody was thought to have one of 4 temperaments. 4 standard temperaments there were thought to be, and everyone fell into these categories. And you can think about which one you fall into, okay? Category number 1, you were sanguine, which meant you were optimistic and energetic. Okay? That's one type of person, one type of temperament. A second type is melancholic. You're the moody, withdrawn type of person, okay? And don't hit the person next to you, by the way, if you think it's them, okay? You just worry about yourself, yeah? Choleric. That was the third type. It wasn't a disease. You were thought to be irritable and impulsive, okay? And phlegmatic was you were a calm and slow person, okay? I don't know if these are positive or negative, by the way. It's just the temperament. So they were the 4 standard ways people thought everybody sort of fell into. You're one of those 4 temperaments. Now we have similar categories today. Okay, we have introvert, extrovert, optimistic, pessimistic, etc. What's interesting in this article was the contributors saying, and they were all child psychologists, they were saying each baby is born with a certain temperament. Okay? And that meant some children were naturally more anxious. Some children are naturally more aggressive. And so you get the more anxious child and you stick them in daycare, and on their first day, what do? Well, they cry, they run away, they hide, they don't like it. What if you're naturally more aggressive? Well, you stick that kid in the daycare centre and they go around and they punch people because they want that toy, and you're not taking that, and I'll do what I want when I want, thank you very much. And the problem the psychologist pointed out was that, sometimes it's actually right. Sometimes when you go into a situation, it actually is scary, and the best thing you can do is run away. But not all the time. And sometimes in some situations you go into, yes, you should be more bold and forward, but not all the time. And here's the thing, children can't figure that out, can they? Not for themselves. They need parents to teach them, they need other people to teach them. This is the appropriate response for this situation. You're not seeing it. Now, you don't talk like this to a child, obviously. But basically you're saying to them, you don't see this situation correctly. Because you don't, you think it's really scary. It's not, it's daycare. Or you get really angry because that kid took something. It wasn't yours. You shouldn't punch them. Why are they having these reactions? They can't see it correctly. They're born with a temperament. It's corrupted because of sin. Add that in there. And they react the wrong way. And so they need people to help them assess the situation to become wise. And this is how one of the writers put it. Modern parents have been told to let their children find themselves and let them be themselves. Now, I don't know if that's the case with you guys. Okay, I realise this is a pretty Western thing. But you would have heard this. Let children be themselves, right? But that could be one of the worst things you could do for a child, the writer says. Unless parents intervene, a child's natural temperament will dominate them and they won't learn how to act wisely in situations where their habitual response is inappropriate. So whatever a child's temperament is, or our temperament, okay, wisdom is looking at the situation correctly and saying, what should I actually do? Not what do I feel and I'm going to react to the situation based on my temperament and how I feel, but what should I actually do? What's the right response? Question, what temperament do you think Jesus had? It's a trick question, don't answer, okay? But think about it. What do you think he had? Was he aggressive? Was he passive? Is he an extrovert? Is he an introvert? I'd put to you he didn't have a temperament, he was wise. He reacted in the way he needed to react according to the situation. Could Jesus be aggressive? Absolutely. Go and read John 2, how he goes into the temple, makes a whip, drives out all the cattle and all the animals and starts overturning tables, throwing them over. You'd sack your pastor if he did that. Jesus did it. So is he aggressive? Sometimes. Is he passive? Yeah. He's about to be crucified. Everybody's yelling, accusing him, saying he's a traitor. He betrays the Roman king. What does he say? Basically nothing. Completely passive. He knows the will of God. He knows he has to go to the cross. And so he doesn't say anything. Why? Because Jesus was wise. He's wise. He responded like he did because that's what the situation required. And that's what actually we want to become, don't we? Individuals, a church, because churches have temperaments as well. They react in certain ways all the time. You know how some of you know before you go to your parents what they're going to say? Because they always say that, right? Well, the opposite's true. They know what you're going to say when they come to ask you to do something because you always react like that. How good it would be if we all of us stopped doing that and actually became wise. Stopped reacting out of our temperament and looked at the situation and said, what should I do? Now the second type of fool, and this is much, much more brief. The obstinate fool. Obstinate fool. This type of person has become hardened in their folly. Proverbs 17, a rebuke impresses a discerning person. So you can say, if you're wise, a person can rebuke you and you take it on board and listen. A rebuke impresses a discerning person more than 100 lashes a fool. Proverbs 27. Though you grind, this is really vivid, though you grind a fool in a mortar, grinding them like grain with a pestle, okay, so you're just working on it, okay, grinding it as small as you can, you will not remove their folly from them. That's how much folly has become part of them. It's gripped them and it's part, you can't separate it anymore, in other words. Now add to that, they actually like their folly. Folly brings joy to the one who has no sense. You say, really? You ever been around somebody who's drunk? Hey mate, how are ya? Having a great time. Idiot. Right? But you actually start to like it. Well, this is a disgusting one. Proverbs 26, as a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. You say, it is disgusting, and think about your foolishness and how often you do the same dumb thing again and again. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You know it's ridiculous yourself, and yet you still do it. It's folly. Now, fools, they're just not a problem to themselves. That would be bad enough, but they're actually a menace to everybody else around them. Better to meet a bear robbed of her cubs than a fool bent on folly. Nothing more scary, really, than a mother bear who's just lost her cubs. Except if you meet a fool who's trying to do something foolish. Get away from them. They're quick to quarrel. It is one's honour to avoid strife, but every fool is quick to quarrel. They are untrustworthy. Sending a message by the hands of a fool is like cutting off one's feet or drinking poison. Okay, so it's like you've got this really important message, you give it to a fool, you may as well turn around and start poking your own eye. It's like, you cannot trust them. Why did you give them that message? You're just hurting yourself. They're draining to be around. Stone is heavy and sand a burden, but a fool's provocation is heavier than both. You've got to read Proverbs, hey? This has got to encourage you to read it. It's actually quite funny. At the same time it's convicting, it's actually funny. They cause pain to their companions. What is that? Walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools, if you hang around fools, suffers harm. The worst pain of all is the pain that a fool brings to their parents, though. A wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother. To have a fool for a child brings grief. There is no joy for the parent of a godless fool. And that is very true. You look at your kids, especially, and this especially kicks in around the teenage years, and you look at them, and if you can see that they're making not just an occasional dumb decision, because we all do that, but they actually make foolish decision after foolish, and they just want to do it. There's nothing more grieving to a parent. They know that kid's life is going to end in a train wreck. Nothing harder to watch. Now that's a fairly quick look at the obstinate fool, okay? But can you see how they've levelled up from the simple fool? This is more serious. It's getting hard to separate it anymore. They're not drifting into sin. They like it. That just leaves us with the mocker or the scoffer. I always prefer to say scoffer just because mocker sounds like a drink. But anyway. And this is the worst place to be, by the way. And I think, frighteningly, this is getting more common. Especially on the internet. Everyone just scoffs against the other person. You read an article, and it's got all these comments below, and it's just like people are going at it, just hating on each other, just scoffing as much as they can. Proverbs 21. The proud and arrogant person, mocker is his name, behaves with insolent fury. Okay, so the person who constantly mocks others tends to be an angry person, skeptical, rude, cynical, questions everyone's motives all the time, and quite often they're abusive. Hence Proverbs 22 says, drive out the mocker, and out goes strife. Quarrels and insults are ended. Now the mocker, because they're proud, they have a strong dislike for correction, so they'll reject it. Or better yet, from their perspective, they'll just avoid it altogether. They'll avoid the wise person. Excuse me. A wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a mocker does not respond to rebukes. Mockers resent correction, so they avoid the wise. They'll just, they don't want to be in a wise person's presence. Now, for a while, they can actually seem cool and sophisticated, but eventually people just don't like to be around them. The schemes of folly are sin, and people detest a mocker. You know, sometimes you get it on with DJs on the radio, if any of you actually listen to the radio anymore, showing my age. They just, whatever news is on, they sort of just scoff at it. And just idiots. You know, why would you think that? That's fun for about a minute. But it's really, if you hang around a person who does that all the time, it's actually just, it's really unpleasant. And the worst thing for the scoffer is that in the end, God is going to treat them exactly how they've treated other people. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the righteous. He mocks proud mockers, but shows favour to the humble and oppressed. The wise inherit honour, but fools get only shame. So he's a very fair God. Somebody spends their life going around just scoffing at others. At the end of the day, God will scoff at them. So that's the three types of fools Proverbs warns us about. Simple fool, obstinate, and the mocker or the scoffer. What's the road to wisdom then? Okay, can you see how bad that is? How much, at the same time, we're probably all going, yeah, I got a little bit of that in me. How do we move forward? Road to wisdom. Begins with a longing for wisdom, a desire to become wise. You know, one of the things I want to do with you guys is that I hope as we go through this, you actually want to become wise. If you don't, folly's yours. If you want to become wise, that's your first step. You've actually got to want it. And then you can gain it. Proverbs 2, this was read out at the beginning. The father puts it to his son like this. He encourages him to pursue wisdom above all else. It says, "My son, if you accept my words, store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom, applying your heart to understanding. If you call out for insight, cry aloud for understanding. If you look for it as for silver, search for it as for hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God." All the verbs there, being a verb, they're active. You have to do something. You have to want something. Turn and go after wisdom. Cry out for it. Call aloud. And God says, "I will give you wisdom." So longing to be wise, that's the first step. Second step, being teachable, means we're humble and eager to listen to advice. Proverbs 12 puts it really straightforwardly. "Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but whoever hates correction is stupid." Proverbs 13, "Where there is strife, there is pride, but wisdom is found in those who take advice." If you're somebody who finds yourself constantly in strife with people, you've probably got a proud heart. We've got to be people, brothers and sisters, who are willing to have others instruct us. That doesn't mean you're a person that, okay, I don't want to listen, but I won't say anything. It goes beyond that. It actually goes to the point of, I'll actually genuinely listen to what they're saying. Yes, they say it all the time. So be it. I'm going to genuinely listen and see if I can learn something. You take that attitude on the rest of your life, you'll accelerate past people so far you won't know yourself in 5 years' time. You'll be so wise, people will look and you go, "What happened to you?" Because you become someone who's genuinely teachable. It's actually one of the best things my Bible college ever made me do, and they had to make me do it, was have a mentor. I had to have a mentor. Someone older than me, that was in pastoral ministry already, had been for many years, and they were going to mentor me. To this day, I'm thankful for that, and I have not stopped that. It's the best thing ever, because half the time I would come to them with a problem and say, "I've got this issue, blah, blah, blah," and I'll be upset and whatever, and they go, "Why don't you do this?" Like, "Oh, you're so wise." Yes, because he's done it for 20 years. And all of a sudden, I started looking a lot wiser because I'd come into my pastor and say, "Hey, we should do this." And they go, "That's a great idea." Yeah. And the humble person I was didn't say who gave me that idea. But anyway, that's because I actually finally, it took me 24 years to get to that point, but I finally started to listen to somebody else. And usually, to be honest, it has to be someone older than you. Your friends, as nice as they may be, they're going through the same stuff. They're not wiser. You need somebody who's got that 15, that 20 years on you. And if you're in here, and I'm not going to look at anyone in particular, if you're getting to a place where there is nobody older than you, because you're up there in years, you can always continue to learn from God. Always. And to be honest, the older I get, I think half of my lessons are, "Do you remember that lesson I taught you 15 years ago, David?" You've forgotten it, you've got to relearn it. Number 3, we grow in wisdom by being observant. It's an interesting one. Proverbs 6, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. Has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gather its food at harvest." So we learn by just looking around. If you notice somebody else who's wise and makes good decisions in different areas in life, maybe financially or in terms of friendships or relationships, watch them. Like, don't freak them out by, okay, don't be a creep, but watch what they do. And really look at how they live and how they think through their decisions and learn from it. And you'll become wiser. You'll become a more well-rounded person. Finally, wisdom is for anyone, but it's especially for the foolish. If you've been listening to this morning and you think, "Yep, I'm a fool. In fact, I'm all 3 fools rolled into one. I'm immature, I'm stubborn, never thought about having a mentor, I don't take advice." Well, wisdom then is for you. Wisdom loves to make the foolish wise. Proverbs 1, out in the open, wisdom calls aloud. Okay, so wisdom is not hidden away. Wisdom is not for just the really smart. Wisdom calls out. She raises her voice in the public square. On top of the wall, she cries out. At the city gate, she makes her speech. How long, she says, will you who are simple love your simple ways? How long will mockers delight in mockery and fools hate knowledge? Repent at my rebuke, then I will pour out my thoughts to you. I'll make known to you my teachings. Wisdom actually wants to be known. Proverbs 9 is even better. Wisdom has built her house. She set up its 7 pillars. She has prepared her meat, mixed her wine. She has also set her table. So she's prepared a feast, an awesome feast. She has sent out her servants. She calls from the highest point of the city. So this is an open invitation to everyone, isn't it? She's at the top of the city calling out. Let all who are simple come to my house. To those who have no sense, she says, come and eat my food, drink my wine I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and you will live. Walk in the way of insight. So there is no berating here, brothers and sisters. There's no wagging of the finger from God saying, oh, why don't you just grow up? Wisdom, which comes from God, is saying, come. There's a feast to be had, and if you will come, I will feed you, and your life will be changed forevermore. Why? Because God wants us to be wise. This is the one Father who, if you asked him, what does he want for his children? He would say, I want wise children. I want them wise. So I want to encourage you with that. God wants you wise. Come to the feast and